markets are rallying. But why? Well, Trump has played two cards today. That's right, the President of the United States has played two very important cards in these trade wars. We're going to be getting into that and much, much more. What's going on with Bitcoin? Back above 81, briefly above 82 for Bitcoin. Ethereum raging higher in double-digit gains on the day. The S&P much higher, the Nasdaq much higher. We're going to break it all down and what it means for you and your portfolio going forward. Let's hit that intro. Thank you all so much for joining. Now, you're probably expecting Tim Warren because he is the main analyst here at the Investing Bros. Tim is in the process of moving down to the great state of Florida. So continue to pray for him in this time of transition. But bros, you are locked in with me, Tshroom. I'm going to walk you through the important news of the day. We're going to take a look at some charts, and I'm going to give you my final analysis on what we should be thinking going into the rest of this week, into the weekend, and into the rest of the month. Bros, let's go ahead and jump over to my screen. Let's get a quick quote for today. Bitcoin coming in at 81,840. That gives us a +7 on the day, up 7.3% there. Ethereum rocking out at 1,627 per coin. That's up almost 11%. It has been up as high as 11%. Let's see what else we got going on here. We've also got the S&P 500 up 7.2% today. And the NASDAQ, or the Qs, up 9.2%. The Qs back up above 450, now all the way up to 453. But it is volatile, and I would caution everyone to watch the whole stream today because I'm going to be going through some very bullish news, but my take may not be what you expect. Let's go ahead and jump on into the first story. The United States president authorizes a 90-day pause on tariffs. United States president simultaneously raises the tariffs on China to 125%, which will not pause. Now, if you're just tuning in, you haven't been paying attention to the news today, this is a very, very big headline. Very big headline. This is why we're seeing the NASDAQ up more than 5%. This is why we're seeing Bitcoin, Ethereum all raging higher. And by the way, altcoins absolutely moving higher. HBAR up 12%, Hype up 20%, ONDO 17.9. There's not a single red bubble on this screen, bros. Not even the ones behind me. I can see them. So it is very bullish. Let's get into this truth from the President of the United States. Based on the lack of respect that China has shown to the world's markets, I hereby raise the tariff charged to China by the United States of America to 125% effective immediately. At some point, hopefully in the near future, China will realize that the days of ripping off the United States and other countries is no longer sustainable or acceptable. Conversely, and based on the fact that more than 75 countries have representatives in the United States, including the Department of Commerce, Treasury, and the USTR, to negotiate solutions to the subjects being discussed relative to trade barriers, tariffs, currency manipulation, non-monetary tariffs, and these countries have not, at my strong suggestion, retaliated in any way, shape, or form against the U.S., I have authorized a 90-day pause and a substantially lowered reciprocal tariff during this period of 10%, also effective immediately. This is big. So 10% tariffs stay intact, but the reciprocal aspects, the reciprocal percentage is paused for 90 days. That's quite a long time to give the markets room to breathe and to start to price in what these tariffs are going to mean without the market turbulence, without the volatility coming in at the same time. So there's two big things here. There's been a pause in the reciprocal portions of the tariffs, but there's been an increase to the reciprocal tariff on China. And the 125% tariff, that is not paused. So there's kind of squarely in the crosshairs here, China, right? Now, Let me give you all a little bit more context of how we got here, because that announcement was less than 30 minutes ago, and we're very glad that the president decided to make that call when he did, because it allowed us to report on it. So thank you, President. Here's the context, though. 12 p.m. this morning, the United States issued a 104% tariff on China to go live. That was midnight last night. The 104% tariffs on China are live, and currently, if goods are being imported into the United States from China, being exported from China, imported into the United States, they are being subject to a 104% tariff. So that's live. It's going on. The 125%, that's not going to come till tomorrow, but that's what it's being added up to. So quite a ratcheting up in a very short amount of time. Now, 6 a.m., fast forward to 6 a.m., China announces an additional 84% tariff on U.S. goods. That did not go over very well in risk markets, and that pushed asset prices quite a bit lower when that was announced. But then you get to 8 a.m. The Treasury Secretary Bessent says everything's on the table when asked about removing Chinese stocks from the U.S. stock exchanges. Okay. So instead of increasing the tariffs even more, in that moment, Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary Bessent, went ahead and said potentially those ADR stocks, those Chinese stocks that are traded on the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange, those actually could be good. Those could go away, which takes liquidity away from the Chinese equity markets, Chinese risk markets. So that was the events of the day. That was the context, but it didn't stop there. The president also gave the go-ahead for a tax cut bill, and he said this: "It is imperative for Republicans in the House to pass the tax cut bill now. Our country will boom." And markets did rally on that. In that moment, in the S&P moved up a percentage and change. Tesla moved up 5.1. Bitcoin moved up 2.4 on that news. That was all this morning. That was all earlier, around 10 a.m. this morning. Then something happened that we haven't heard a whole lot talked about. This was China coming back. This is how they came back. Instead of ratcheting up the tariffs for a second time on the day, they had already done it to 84%. They did this instead. China's Ministry of Commerce will ban exports of advanced sensors for drones and other similar components. We're going to get into crypto. We're going to get into the broader markets here in a minute. But I just want to give you guys the context of how we landed at this, right? A 90-day pause on all other tariffs, excluding China, right? So you kind of see the ramp up into that proclamation. My comment on it is that this is extremely dynamic, and the people that are making these decisions are clearly very. You're going to have your different opinions on whether or not it's competent or capable to be making these kind of decisions, but these are very, very high level, fast moving decisions. They're reaching conclusions quickly, and they're pulling triggers. They're making it happen on the Chinese side and on the American side. Am I impressed? I don't know that I would say that I'm impressed. I'm impressed at the speed at which the decisions are being made, but it's causing a lot of volatility. It's causing a lot of uncertainty in the markets. And for those of us who like to invest in risk assets like crypto and the stock market, we felt a lot of pain over the last few weeks, really since the DeepSeek event, where a Chinese AI really started to shake the market and showed that it was well ahead of what a lot of Western technologists had thought. Since that event, we have really come into a whole new world where this risk assets have shed quite a bit. This is what Tim has been thinking. This was his thoughts on the subject. Again, Tim Warren. He's usually the analyst who does the majority of the presentation here, but he's occupied today. This is what he said. I put this out on Twitter this morning. He said, "To be honest, the way the news is going and the charts are moving, I don't think anyone can call anyone foolish. If you want to sell, that makes sense. We could easily be headed for a larger crash. If you want to hold, that makes sense. And there's so much bullishness fundamentally that could explode at any moment. Welcome to the clown market. Anything is possible." This brings us to our charts. Let's go ahead and jump over. We're going to start with the S&P 500, and we're going to round over to Bitcoin and some altcoins. Go ahead and drop in the chat for me, bros. What are some altcoins that you would like me to look at? Maybe even some stocks. Whatever you'd like, I will take a look today if we have time. So taking a look here at the S&P 500 on the daily chart, you can see there's a good amount of daylight here between live price and the Bollinger Band, as well as the previous long trending line of support that would bring us about 3% back to the price of 5,538. Okay, so we're currently facing resistance here. This is the resistance line that was support back here from September 9th. We sliced right through this August 2nd line of support, and where we did find support on the daily chart was this support back here from April 19th. That is currently the bottom for the S&P 500 price, just under 5,000, right around 4,953. Now we wicked down to 4,835. So if you were day trading, live trading this, you would have seen on the lower time frames candles closing below that quote. But this is the end of trading for Monday the 7th. That's as low as we got from a candlestick standpoint. So now the question is this proclamation from the President of the United States, this 90-day pause on tariffs, is it enough to boost the S&P back up above the 20-day moving average, back to 5,500? We don't know. We don't know. I mean, so far the thrust of this movement is pretty convincing. If we go down to the lower time frames before we go down to the oscillators, we can see that this is all happening pretty quickly. And on the lower time frame, on the 4-hour, we have wicked into that midline of the Bollinger Band. I'm a big Bollinger Band guy. You might be thinking, well, why doesn't Tim ever bring up the Bollinger Bands? Everybody has their own indicators. I love the Lux Algo indicators. I'm going to show you why here in just a second. But I am a big, and I mean big, fan of the Bollinger Bands. So stick with me here, bros. Smash the like button. We're going to look at some Lux Algo oscillators here as well in just a second. Just wanted to point out, too, you can see that this is where we penetrated through on the lower time frame. The S&P 500 did make it down to 4,911 on the 4-hour time frame. So I'm going to show you where I think the S&P can get down to here. Again, why am I spending so much time on the index as well? That's really where a lot of the carnage is taking place. Believe it or not, crypto is actually holding up somewhat better than the stock market. But here we can see a bull cross is imminent for the S&P 500 on the 4-hour, showing that the momentum is starting to return to the bulls as the red histograms are waning and the MACD lines are forming a bullish cross. Hasn't crossed yet, but remember, it's the curving before the cross that's really the forward-looking indicator, that early indicator of bullishness returning to the market. Now, we don't see here on the Lux Algo oscillator matrix, we do not see money flow positive yet. And this is going to be our first sign to remain defensive. I've told the bros in the Discord that I will not be purchasing any new risk assets until today, until Wednesday. I started that policy Thursday of last week, and so far, I have been happy that I did. Why? Well, it's because of indicators like this. On the 4-hour, the money flow is still negative, it's moving in a negative direction. The red represents true negative money flow, but this is moving towards negative money flow, right? What is encouraging about the Lux Algo oscillator matrix here is that we're putting in a lower low, which that part isn't the encouraging part, but we do have a reversal delta here and a reversal dot here, showing that we do have some hope of a movement back to the upside. Now, that movement is playing out back up on the candlesticks, as you can see here, but we're not seeing as much volume as we did back here. Perhaps the market could be a bit more convinced if the volume was a bit higher, but I don't want to count out completely that this isn't the bottom. Okay, so let's go back. Let's see how much further could the S&P 500 drop. Of course, I'm going to give you an estimate. It could go much lower. After all, I believe Larry Fink said that we could see another 20, what did he say? Another 20% downside. So if you think Larry Fink has your interest in mind telling you that information, then that's quite a bit more of a shed to go. So we have wicked down to 4,800, again, still in the S&P 500. One thing you will notice on the 4-hour, we are in the discount zone here from Price Action Concepts, another Lux Algo indicator. That wick is only 2.4% away from this historic uptrending line of support for the S&P 500. As I'm zooming out, I'm hearing some gasps. I'm hearing some panic. Yes, we have we have had quite a shed here on the S&P 500 from the local highs, those all-time highs. We've seen 21.4% shed to the downside, coming very close to this historic uptrending line of support right here. Maybe a little faint on your screen. You may need to zoom in. But this is really not too far away from that. Okay, this is another reason why I'm still remaining defensive, meaning not allocating new dry powder, meaning not buying more risk assets, not more ExxonMobil, not more Bitcoin, not more Ethereum, not more Tesla. Yet I'm on a pause. One of the big indicators for me to pause new buying is when you hear the word circuit breaker in the news, right? There had to be a circuit breaker used in some Japanese markets, and there was talk of circuit breaker for Black Monday. Whenever anybody's talking about circuit breakers, it doesn't mean that it's not a good buying price, right? Doesn't mean that the price isn't good and discounted. After all, you can see right here, Lux Algo is telling you that the S&P 500 entered a discounted zone, right? That's when you want to buy. You want to buy things when they're discounted. However, what overwhelms that, what overrides that, is volatility, is hyper volatility to the point where we don't know if we could go another 20% to the downside. I don't want to buy if I have a good idea that we could go 20% more to the downside. Why? Not because I'm scaled, but because I want to buy lower. I want to see how low we can go, right? So that's one way to think about it. That's another reason why I'm defensive. Let's take a look at the Qs. Because one thing that we notice with the Qs, even on the 4-hour, is a big volume spike here, right? And we see volume spikes. When I say volume, I'm talking about these bars down here. You'll see the average is kind of this trend line right up here. And we had two candlesticks that kind of were anomalistic. One of them was a buy volume, and that could potentially signal the bottom for the NASDAQ. After all, on the 4-hour, it is dipping into this discount zone here. Discount, what does that mean? It just means that it's the opposite of premium, right? The premium zone is up here. This is where you're paying for assets that are at all-time high, right? So you're paying a bit of a premium versus their price to earnings versus their book, okay? And then here is the equilibrium zone. You'll see that we came down, and then we kind of chopped along in that equilibrium zone before taking a big dump ski to the downside and dipping into the discount zone. Okay, so hopefully I know that I'm breaking things down very differently than Tim usually does. Tune in again the rest of this week to hear analysis in a different way. But this is just the way that I think, this is the way that I like to look at it. Let's check out Bitcoin. Then we will go ahead and we'll check out altcoins. And I've got a couple more stories that are going to come your way that give us a little bit more insight on the macro. So taking a look here at Bitcoin, we can see a couple of different things. And I need to update this really quickly. No better time to update your indicators than on a live show. Am I right? Smash the one, drop a one in chat if you agree with that. So we're coming right into the smart trail right here on the 4-hour for Bitcoin. We came right up to it, 82,900, and then we retrace. And can we continue to move higher? We shall see. The oscillators will give us a little bit of an indicator if we will or not. But one thing you might be noticing down here is the buy rating from Lux Algo on the 4-hour. These tell folks when might be a good time to enter and when might be a good time to exit, right? You need other confluence. You don't want to trade solely on these types of indicators. However, they can give you a little bit of an idea, especially if you're just starting out in your trading journey, and it can give you a great second opinion if you are a seasoned veteran of these financial markets. Taking a look here, staying on the 4-hour at the Lux Algo oscillator matrix for Bitcoin, you can see that unlike the S&P 500, we have been in negative money flow for a little bit, and now we are actually starting to move back to the upside ever so slightly. Ever so slightly. We have gotten across this threshold here, the oversold threshold, and we're coming back in. And we're also seeing a higher low here for the oscillator matrix. Again, this is another contrast to the S&P 500, kind of showing that really Bitcoin probably is going to have much more of an explosive move to the upside than the S&P. May even see that movement earlier, right? That's just a kind of a quick, kind of brutal interpretation of that comparison there. 4-hour MACD showing a lot of confusion down here with the MACD lines. This is pretty much noise. This is noise until we get a second histogram, right? You don't see, you usually don't see, if you look back at the history, you don't see a giant jutting histogram as the first green histogram very often. So this is another, while this objectively by itself is bullish in some sense, right? I'm not buying it, right? I'm staying defensive. I'm thinking if we can shoot up this high on the words of the president and the dynamics of the trade wars today, then what's stopping us from moving right back to the downside if, let's say, the 90-day pause were to be invalidated with the just as quickly as the fingers can be snapped to the upside, the fingers can be snapped to the downside. We are in crazy town, right? I am 100% in agreement with Tim. We are in a clown market. Anything is possible, but we will not stay in the clown market. And chances are you will have a chance to buy your favorite risk asset, whether it be the indexes over here at the S&P 500 or Bitcoin. You will be able to buy these assets and build generational wealth well below the all-time highs. Currently, the S&P is down 11%. It has been a very long time since you've been able to buy the S&P down 11% from its local high. You didn't get a chance back here. We didn't get down that low back here in August of 2024. Back here, I don't think we got, this was barely even a 6% move. This has been, if you bought today, this would be quite a discount for the main index of the American stock market. And we got as low as, I believe I already called it. Let's quote it again here, 21%. Okay. So my fear, my conviction is that we have not seen the worst of it yet. Why? Well, because there's daylight between this historic line of support, and some of the momentum indicators are also signaling that we've moved up too quickly, right? And that there's still an opportunity for a liquidity hunt to the downside, for price exploration to the downside. I want to look at Solana. I definitely want to look at ONDO. Thank you all for dropping the ones in chat. Much love to you. Go ahead and smash those like buttons. I've got a couple more stories here that I want to share with you all. The first one here, this is actually pretty interesting. So this was a quote from back in the day. This was a quote from July 15th of 2024. Larry Fink said this on Squawk on the Street interview. Look at him there. There he is. Larry Fink on Squawk of the Street. All right, this is what he said. He said, Bitcoin is an asset for when you're frightened. Countries debasing currencies, destabilizing economies. It's an alternative to gold. Now, this is what we want to hear. This is maybe a little bit overly bullish, right? But this is what we want to hear, and this is coming from Larry Fink himself. So a pretty big story there. And this is again from July 15th. But when you hear this and you read this today, it kind of hits different, doesn't it, bros? It kind of gives a little bit of a new meaning to it all, for sure. So the other thing that's going on today is the 10-year. The 10-year Treasury yield falls from highs after auctions, easing concerns about demand for U.S. debt. Let's take a look at those 10-year bonds. You knew that Tshroom was going to be on the show. He was going to be steering the ship today, that you would be seeing a little bit of the 10-year bonds. We got to tell the 10-year story here. After all, a lot of the chaos we're seeing is engineered to bring the 10-year down lower. But hold on. Why is it back up above 4.3? Bros, the 10-year was doing what it was told. The 10-year was going along with the narrative that it needed to. It made quite a bit of a movement to the downside. You all remember that we showed the head and shoulders move here for the 10-year, and that this could potentially bring us down to 3.3% on the 10-year. But fate would have it a different way. Now, we don't know exactly if this is China selling, so why would a rate come up? rates run completely inverse to the value of the underlying bond. And when rates come down, it is showing that the market is buying U.S. bonds because there's less of an incentive needed over time for folks to buy bonds. That means that they have been getting bought. There's more demand for them. So the opposite is true when the yields come up. It means that bonds are being sold and the incentives needs to increase, right? The rate of return needs to increase in order for someone who would otherwise take risk in the S&P to take to trust the U.S. government to return an increase, to return a gain. So this is a problem. This is not what the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has engineered. However, we don't know why this is. We don't know, at least I don't know exactly why the 10 years come up. Clearly, someone has sold a lot of bonds. And there's two organizations, I should say, two classifications of large money managers who would be responsible for a move of this magnitude. It would be China, right? I'm not going to try to spell this out. That was a fool's errand. It was China and hedge funds. And so far, it seems to be hedge funds. So hedge funds hold a lot of bonds so that they can do what is called a leverage trade with those bonds to extract an arbitrage between the underlying bonds that are actually issued by the government and the futures market on top of those underlying bonds. Sound confusing? It's because it is. But in short, hedge funds likely sold a lot of bonds because of some very complex financial maneuvering that they were doing. And this is why we've seen the 10-year come up. Tshroom, shut up about the 10-year. Let's look at Solana. I hear you loud and clear. Let's go take a look. So Solana here, very, very interesting movement. I'm going to go back over to the daily chart to analyze Solana. And what we can notice right off the bat is that it is struggling to get back above this line of resistance right at $100 and $120, right? This comes in. This was support once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Had a quick slice through back here in August of 2024, but it is fair to say that this is a pretty standard line of support. Also was held pretty well through here, although we got some candles to drop down below. So this is a line of support that I'm paying attention to, and it is now currently the battlefield for Solana to get back above and close a daily candle above 120. It's not doing it. Could this mean we go lower? Yes. That is why I'm still on a pause of buying. Should you buy low and sell high? Yes. That is the mantra of risk markets, but there is no indication that this trade war is over with China. And that's really where I got to leave all of this, because at the end of the day, what is steering the market? It isn't the innovation behind the Solana blockchain. It isn't the amazing narrative behind ONDO, which I'll take a look at here as well, and tokenization. It's much, much broader. It's called the macroeconomic factor that is really what is moving price today. It's not incremental progress in the underlying fundamentals of ONDO, Ethereum, Bitcoin, Chainlink. Name your favorite altcoin. I wish, and we will return back to a place in the market where things calm down, and what causes a ripple in the price movement is actually fundamental upgrades, new investment, huge partnerships, contracts being signed, total value lock increase, those types of things. Those are the kinds of things that I get passionate about, that I get excited about. If you want to learn more about the fundamentals of crypto, jump over to our fundamentals channel. Yeah, that's right. Crux of Crypto. He will be on the show tomorrow. He does amazing, amazing work breaking down the fundamentals of crypto. If you've heard of a crypto, we've probably done a video on it over at Alpha Broz. Alpha Broz is the channel you want to go check out. It's over there. If you just search in YouTube, Alpha Broz with a Z. It's also recommended by our YouTube channel as well. The last story I want to bring to your attention before I do some ONDO technical analysis is this. The Minneapolis Fed President Neel Kashkari says the bar for rate cuts is now higher. Now, he said this earlier this morning. He said this before this headline came out. Nonetheless, this is an important headline. Oh, where'd it go? We're going to look at everything but this headline. Hold on. There we go. He said this, bar for rate is now higher to keep inflation expectations anchored, even if the economy weakens and job losses rise. The hurdle to change the federal funds rate has increased due to tariffs, he wrote. Could potentially that be why or at least a big part of why we got this 90-day pause when we did today? Because the Fed, after all, now this isn't Jerome Powell saying this. I keep losing this. It is a current voting member of the FOMC board, Neel Kashkari. Broz, I am very bullish on the stock market, on crypto. The President of the United States, whether you agree with him or not, he has done some things that has really shaken investors' confidence in these assets currently. That's the thing that you have to take away, is that everything that's going on is within the current mindset and the current time frame of investors' approach to the market. The way that they're allocating, the way that they're repricing is not the way that it will be in the future. And you have to make the determination for yourself. If you allocate today, if you sell today, if you hold today, you have to make that decision for yourself. I am holding. I haven't bought in over a week because of the level of volatility. But Tshroom, prices are on discount. Buy the dip. Absolutely, I agree. Part of me wants to deploy every ounce of dry powder that I have and even dip into my emergency fund to buy risk assets. Why would that be the wrong thing? In my opinion, that's the wrong thing because the markets are actually too volatile right now. Volatility is great, especially the younger you are, because you get exposure to oversold prices, discounted, and you get to reap the rewards of that through the building of generational wealth, through buying the dip, through DCA. But there comes a time when it just gets too volatile, and it's actually better to take a step back and let the chaos flush out of the market, let the resolution come in, and hope for reduced prices for a little bit longer, right? What we're seeing from the Fed is kind of an early signal that you're going to probably have the rest of April and March to enjoy these discounted prices. Now, some of you might be hearing that and saying, "Ooh, Tshroom just said prices aren't going to come back up." The reality is I don't know. This is a little bit of a crazy market. So we've seen the beginnings of a V-shaped recovery today. Maybe tomorrow we get another 7% day to the upside, and then Thursday and Friday we see another 7% day to the upside on the Nasdaq, and then Monday, and then we go. Next thing you know, we're back at all-time highs, and it's like this never happened. It's possible, but my hunch is that we will probably find some resistance somewhere north of where we are today in Bitcoin, in the Nasdaq, in the S&P 500, and then we will test lower, and then either we will go down and make new lows, or we will find consolidation. We will find support higher than the bottoms that we saw earlier this week on Monday. So stick with us here in the Investing Bros. We are navigating these markets, trying to keep it simple for you all. I'm currently pausing. Tim actually bought some this week. So it's not like just because I'm pausing any new buys that other analysts aren't buying this dip. There's plenty of people who are buying this dip. You probably are too if you're listening to the sound of my voice. I would just caution you that we may see lower prices. Larry Finks thinks we'll see lower prices to the tune of 20% more shed to the downside. I don't think 20% shed for the S&P is really in the cards at this point, unless things really started to get much more chaotic than they already are now. But you have to remember, this is why that context is super important. China put up an 84% tariff on the United States this morning. Nobody knew about that last night. And yet look at the NASDAQ, right? There's important things, and then there's more important things. All of these forces come together to create the crazy chaos that we're seeing today. I'm throwing my hands up. I'm being humble enough to say, I don't know exactly what's going to happen here, but I do have dry powder. I do have capital on the sidelines, and I know that I want to buy these risk assets at some point because I fundamentally know that they are the future of finance when it comes to crypto, the future of store of value when it comes to Bitcoin, in the future of revenue generation when it comes to the Mag 5. Although Amazon may not look good if some of these tariffs do stay on. We talk in the Discord about the different stocks that I like, the ones that have a lot less exposure to these tariffs and what they could create in the future, and which ones are going to do very well, in my opinion, such as Google, that is much more software focused, doesn't touch as much physical parts of the world that may be tariffable. These are the types of things we talk into the Discord about. If you're interested in engaging in these types of conversations and talking to people who are much smarter than me, there's a lot of bros in the Discord, much smarter than me, even smarter than some of the smartest people you've talked about the market with. So jump into the Discord. There's a link down below. We have a completely free Discord. But if you're ready to take that next step and invest in your trading future, and maybe even get a little bit of insight on investing as well, and how to invest in crypto, the complex world of crypto and Web3, or you're just wanting to gain some insight on some stock picks that you've been liking, or just want to see, what's the future for these index funds. We talk about all that kind of stuff down in the Discord, and we'd really love if you would join us. Bros, I am continuing to pause my buying right now. It's not because I don't think that these assets are valuable. I think that they're very valuable, and I think that they are very underpriced. But I want to see some more certainty come back into the market. I want to see some more calm come back into the market, right? And I really want to see trade relations between the United States and China start to normalize. And we probably need to see one of these officials, whether it be the President of the United States or Xi Jinping, fly to see each other in person, negotiate in person, shake a hand, close a deal. And I don't know that that's going to happen within the next 24, 48 hours. So I'm continuing to pause my new buying. You might not be. Let me know in the comments. What are you buying? What are you selling? What are you holding that you're the most confident in? For me, it's probably Bitcoin and MicroStrategies. I love this. I love these assets. They're so amazing. Some of the things that I wish I'd taken more profits on was NVIDIA, right? With that DeepSeek headline, probably should have taken some more profits. Also, the leveraged ETFs of MicroStrategies and Bitcoin and Ethereum probably should have taken some profit back up at the tops when Bitcoin was above 100K, right? These are lessons learned. But lesson we don't want to forget is to buy low. This is the time to buy low. When the dust starts to settle, once the chaos starts to flush out of the market, we have to wait. We have to be patient for that moment. How do we know when the right moment is? Well, you have to make that decision yourself. But joining a community like the Investing Bros Discord, coming back to YouTube here again and again, scrolling through crypto Twitter, and listening to some of the smartest minds giving free financial insights day after day, hour after hour. People like Chamath Palihapitiya, definitely butchered that, or David Sachs, or so many more minds. Pompliano, man, he's got a great Twitter account. Let me know, who do you like to follow in the world of crypto Twitter? I'd love to follow new accounts and gain more wisdom from other folks. But with all that said, bros, Tim will be back on the show later this week, so make sure you tune in. Check out our Discord. If you're looking for a great place to trade crypto, check out Blofin. That's who we sponsored. Click on the link below to trade crypto. Join our Discord to learn how to trade crypto. If you're looking for a good indicator to overlay on your trading view chart, you're ready to take that next step and take trading seriously, check out LuxAlgo. Again, we have a link for LuxAlgo down in the description. And thank you to both of those partners who make this show possible. Bros, you may be feeling some emotions. I know that I have with how low these prices have gotten. But just remember that this is an opportunity to seize generational wealth. And when volatility is flushed out of the market, when the extreme chaos is flushed out, there will be some opportunities to buy assets that will be paying you dividends when you retire. It's a really good time to be in the market. It may feel a little bit scary. It may feel even to the point of panic. If you do feel panic, take a step back, go for a walk, drink some water, don't skip lunch, and do the right things. But this is a huge opportunity. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Bros, we'll be going live later this week. Tomorrow, I will have Crux of Crypto on the show. It's going to be amazing. And we'll talk to you then. We'll see you then. Make sure you smash the like button on the way out. I've been Tshroom, and we've had a lot of fun today. Stay frosty out there, bros. We'll catch you next time. Adios.